Hi, hello, welcome back. Today is a very exciting video that I have kind of put off filming. Originally, I just hadn't filmed it yet because I hadn't actually confirmed the cover and I wanted to have something to show you when I made the announcement. But then it kind of got to the point where I feel like I started putting it off because I just felt a little bit anxious about it, and I knew that as soon as I had officially announced it, that made it official, and then I kind of had like no choice but to move forward with it or just disappoint everyone, basically. But at the end of the day, I am going to publish this poetry collection. I'm going to get something out into the world. I feel like as someone who wants to self-publish my novels, like full-length novels in the future, this is a really important first step for me. And it's almost like one of those things where you kind of just feel like you need a smaller, easier step, such as publishing a short poetry collection before publishing a full-length novel that's like 400 plus pages. I write quite a bit of poetry, even though up until now I haven't really shared that much of it on my channel, and that's because I kind of just write it when I have emotions that I feel like I need to get out, and I always find that poetry or songwriting is a really great way for me to get those emotions out. And I almost think because of how close I am to my poetry and how vulnerable and intimate it kind of feels, I almost feel like if I publish this poetry collection, I kind of feel like I can publish anything else, you know what I mean? Just because of how vulnerable poetry is for me and how emotional it is. And it is kind of scary, but I'm doing my best to be excited about it and remind myself that this is the first step, you know, in getting better at releasing my art into the world where it belongs and not hoarding it and keeping it all to myself, because art is meant to be shared, and that's the point of it. So that is why I am going to be releasing a poetry collection of all my original poetry. There's anywhere from 70 to 80 poems. I'm still sorting through the last few that I want to keep and get rid of. And the publishing date is currently set for November 24th, which is in 14 days. So as you can see, this is what I mean when I say that I really took my time making this video and making the announcement. I feel like it goes without saying there's not really much of a pre-order period happening with this, and I'm okay with that. I do want to expand the platforms that it's on. When it is released, it's only going to be available through Amazon, but before the end of the year, I would like to have it available on things like Ingram Spark as well, just so that it's accessible to other locations and providers as well. But I'm just trying to keep it chill and low-key. Even though it's exciting to be releasing my first like official published collection of poetry, I kind of want to make it as smooth as possible. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's an imposter syndrome thing that I'm just like nervous and I don't want to make that big of a deal out of it. Maybe I'm worried that all of my poems suck and no one's gonna like them anyways, and I don't want to be excited about it just in case that happens, which it could always happen. It's always a possibility. But whatever the reason, that is how it has gone so far. So the reason that you clicked on this video, which is to hear more about the poetry collection, see the cover, get the title. If you are on my Patreon, you have already seen this, but I'm so excited just to share it with my audience on YouTube because a lot of you have been here for a very long time and I appreciate that greatly. So it's very exciting to like finally share this. But this is my poetry collection. It is titled The Stories That Told Me, and it's kind of like a reversal of saying like the stories I've told, and I've kind of reversed it to be the stories that told me. So almost like the stories and books and beliefs and fairy tales and stuff that kind of like made me who I am growing up and really inspired me. The whole idea of this collection was that I wanted to put together something that kind of like traveled through time since not quite the beginning that I started writing poetry, because those poems are just probably never gonna see the light of day, but somewhere in high school is where a lot of these poems started, and then some of them are as new as like a few weeks ago. So the idea was that I wanted to have a poetry collection that kind of like started from childhood or teenage years and then went through into university and then kind of gets to the point that I am at now. And the themes throughout the entire collection are like fairy tales and magic and kind of escapism and learning how to cope. I think there's also pretty strong notes of kind of the trajectory of coming of age and doing that as someone who has used fairy tales and fantasy books as a form of escapism and a way to like cope when things in my actual life got very, very hard. So this collection is kind of like a little love letter to other people who have perhaps gone through the same things and sort of used stories and storytelling and the ideas of like magic and fairy tales as ways to learn about, cope with, and overcome things that are happening to them in their own lives. So on the back it says, "Poetry and prose for the kids who always had their nose in a book and their head in the clouds. I hope you learn to start dreaming again." So the idea is that the collection kind of travels through a very like juvenile perspective of the world that I had when I was a kid and when I started reading and writing fantasy and really like escaping into those worlds. And then it travels through my teenage years, which that section of the book is probably the darkest. And then by the end of the book, there's still a little bit of like hesitancy and skepticism, I think, with the state of the world, but it gets to the point where you've overcome a lot of things and you've learned a lot more about how to cope with hardships in your life and how to kind of start to see the magic that you used to see as a child and learn that, you know, not everything in the world is bad and things are still going to be okay even if there's shit going on, basically. So that was my goal with this collection, and I won't even lie, I kind of feel like I've struggled a little bit with it, with the idea of releasing this, because I think like when you're releasing your first piece of work into the world, especially when it's something that has to do with writing like poetry or a novel or something, you know that the very first thing that you release is probably going to be one of the worst pieces that you release. Like, I think if you're an artist and a creative and someone who wants to continue learning and building their craft, then there's almost 100% guarantee that the first thing you ever release out into the world is going to be the worst and the least skilled and just not as good as everything that's going to come after it as you're learning and practicing and building onto your skill set. And that's a really difficult anxiety to overcome, to be completely honest, but that's also why I think it's so important for me to get this collection out into the world, because I just feel like if I keep trying to make it perfect, it's never going to get out into the world, because it's never ever going to be perfect, and I know that. But I also know that perfectionism is a barrier to getting any of your art out into the world, and I don't want to let that hold me back anymore, which is why in 2 weeks this will be available to purchase. I might get the pre-order up for the ebook early, but I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm going to release a poetry collection, and I think it's going to be fun, and I think that there's going to be good reviews and there's going to be bad reviews, but at the end of the day, I'll finally have something, a piece of my art living and breathing out in the world for others to consume, and that is more important than any review or feedback or hesitancy that I could possibly feel about this situation. And I just have to keep reminding myself of that. Thank you all so much for being with me on this journey, and thank you in advance to anyone who feels like picking up the poetry collection. It is greatly appreciated, and I'm really excited for all of you to kind of get your hands on it and get a look into the dramatics and emotions that I have had over the past like decade and a half. If you have any questions about the poetry collection or the process in general, or anything that you would like me to make another video on, please let me know in the comments on this video. I'm also going to film a vlog on the day that I release it, and kind of probably leading up to that, sort of around the details of the release and the process, I suppose. So if there's any content related to the poetry release and writing and developing it and anything at all, please let me know, and I will definitely touch on it in a video. If I have posted the pre-order link, I will absolutely leave it down below so that you can pre-order the ebook if that is something you feel like doing. But thank you all so much for being here and watching this video and hopping on this journey with me. I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.